Shelley here. Welcome to my channel and thank you for joining me today. So today I was coloring in this page. It's in Teresa Goodridge's Village Charm, my first book that I own from Teresa Goodridge. And this is the first page I'm actually coloring in it. And I'm really enjoying it, guys. I'm so surprised with how relaxing it is coloring her illustrations. I'm really enjoying it, so I'll see how it goes, and there is a risk that I may eventually want a few other books of hers, but this is just the first page I'm coloring, so I may have to color a little bit more in this book before I get to that point. But anyways, I was coloring in this page and I remembered that someone had requested that I show on a how I color video how I color pleats in clothing and how I decide how I'm going to color the pleats. So I saw this dress and I thought there's quite a few pleats here, so why not I just quickly try and record it and try to explain how I color pleats. So I'll try and zoom in onto this dress and chat you guys through it if I can. All right, so let me zoom in. All right, so I'll sort of do a little section, I think, and chat through it maybe, and then as I normally do the rest of the dress either off camera or I'll put some music to it. All right, so I decided I'll go for a yellow dress, and I have decided I'll start off with I've got my color swatches here, so here we go. All right, now I usually, sorry about the chair, I usually work with what the illustrator has given me. So for example, in this particular illustration, it's actually quite simplified for us. So each of these lines is sort of coordinated with the waves at the bottom of the dress. So I try and use that to sort of decide where my shadows are going to be and where my highlights are going to be, so that they look like pleats rather than just flat coloring. So for example, if I look at a very obvious one, I would say here, you can see that the way that the dress is going on the bottom here, it would look like this area here is behind this particular fold of the dress. So therefore that area would be in shadow. I always try and put in or start with the areas that I know are definitely in a shadow. And then if I'm not sure about other areas, once I've laid out the definite areas of shadow, then it's easy for me to try and figure out where else I want to add pleats if it's not added, or where else needs pleats, for example. So now I know that if that's in the shadow, it will go from a gradient of being in a shadow here to being in the highlight here. And therefore this area here is going to be in a shadow. Yeah, so again, I'll dot down my area of shadow. And because we have another line here, usually I would have taken it up to the top or the edge of the dress there, but because we have another line here, I'm not going to just ignore it. I'm going to put in another shadow there so that it looks like there's sort of another little fold. I won't take it all the way down to the bottom of the dress, just like the line hasn't gone down to the bottom of the dress, so I'll do that. Yeah, again, this is quite an easy one, so we can see that the way this is curved, it curves upwards and down. This area here is going to be in a shadow, so I know I'm going to put my shadow area there. And again, we have another line coming down here. So I think because we want to still make this area here the highlight above that shadow area, I'm going to use this line to make another little pleat. Not going down to the bottom again, but working my way up, because that particular line has been drawn for us by the illustrators. So I'm just following their instructions, really. Yeah. Now, where things become hard is somewhere like here. Now, we know, or we can sort of tell, we've decided that this area here is the shadow because of the way the dress is curved at the bottom here. So this area here would be a highlight. And then the way the dress is curved here, going upwards and then back down, that means this area here is going to be a highlight. So we need to create, to emphasize this pleat here, we don't have another line there, but we need to create a shadow to emphasize the area of highlights. So I'm going to add my own little shadow area there. See? So that when I shade, we'll see when I do the gradients, when I shade upwards, we will go into the area of highlight, and we've just created our own little pleat. This area here, I use the bottom of the dress is sort of the best place to decide where the highlights are going to be, because if you ignore those pleats, it's very hard to tell where the shadows are going to be. But if you look at the bottom, those curves is what tells us. So everything that curves sort of upwards, yeah, that part of it will be a highlight, and that part will be creating this upward curve of the dress is what creates the shadow in this area. Similar here, this area is going upwards, which means this area here is going to be in highlight, and it's creating a shadow here. So I can put in the shadow. Yeah, and it's creating a shadow here, that particular upward flow of the dress. I hope I'm explaining that well. I'm actually not 100% sure how to explain this. So like I said over here, the way the dress flows upwards, it will create a shadow here. Yeah, so we know that the upward area is where the highlight is going to be. That's where the light is going to hit it first. So that will be where the highlight is. Wherever the light will hit an area first is where the highlight would always be, or the lightest shade that you're using will always be. Similar here, you see the dress at the bottom is curving upwards there and then back down. So this upward area, this area will be in highlight, and this area is that upward fold of the dress is creating a shadow here. So that area will be dark. Yeah, so I basically go over whatever fabric or clothing that I'm coloring, and I try and sort of put in where I think the highlights are going to be, where I think the shadows are going to be. So where I think the shadows, are going to be, and then that maps out where my highlights are going to be. Well, I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but that's how I do it. And it works for me. Yeah, I love coloring clothing actually. Okay, so let's work with this area here. But that's how I do it. So say I move up to the top of the dress. Let's say the top part, because there's no bottom of the dress to tell us where the highlights are going to be. So here I just sort of try and figure it out myself. So I know that there's some lines here, and I try and use those lines to create my own areas of darkness. Now, what is right and what is wrong in this particular case, I'm not sure, but I use those to sort of create a few dark areas. That's going to be a dark area there. Yeah. And then this is behind the dress, this particular part of the dress. So I'm just going to do that. So I'm not creating a pleat as such, but I'm just darkening the area around the belt. And I think normally I would have a fairly dark outline. So say I go here. So the outline of my dress would usually be like that, and I come in light towards the middle of my dress. So that's what I'll do here. Although in this case, because we can see the back of the dress, the inner part of the dress, that will have to be darker than this neckline that I'm doing right now. So I may not make this the darkest shade, that I'm still going to use a darker shade in the shadow area. So I'm not going to probably use that at the neckline, but I will use it on the back part of the dress there, so that it looks like it's behind this particular part of the neckline that I'm coloring in now. Yeah, all right, so that's how I would do that part. And then the top part, again, we know that there's a belt, so there'll be a shadow created by the belt at the waistline. And then if we have some lines to work with, so first of all here, there'll be a shadow created because of the bow. I've not gone into too much detail with regards to light source, because that makes it a little bit more complicated, but I can always do that another time. But this is my simplest form of coloring. I'm keeping it simple because I've been really enjoying this page, and I just wanted to carry on just relaxing and coloring it like I was. But anyway, so there we go. So I used that line there to create a shadow. I used this line here to create a shadow because we've been given some lines. It just makes it easier. Most illustrators do put some lines in their clothing, and you can just use them to assist you in deciding where your pleats are going to be. Now, we decided on this area here that that is where the shadow is. So this part of the line is going to be in highlight. So therefore, we have to decide which side of this particular line is going to be a highlight. Now, we have the bow here, so I'm going to make the shadow behind the bow so that the bow will look 3D, will stand out. Yeah. And so therefore, going from there to there, that area there is going to be in highlight. So therefore, I'm going to put my shadow on this side of this particular line, which works well because that side of this line is in highlight. Yeah. Now I'm going to work in this area just to show you how I use different shades to darken up the area and complete it, rather than doing just the whole dress straight away. I'm just darkening up the areas I put, the base I've put down. Okay, now I'm going to go with this is the darkest shade I'm going to use in this particular case, the burnt ochre, and I'm going to put in more of my shadows in the areas that we have marked out. I've only ever colored one other page of Teresa Goodrich. I think if you sign up to Dover, was it Dover Publications newsletter or something, you get samples every now and then of their books, of their coloring books, and their other books as well. And so I think when Main Street was going to be released, or was released, I got the samples for that particular book, and I think I've done one page in that book. Well, I obviously printed it out. I think it was on an antique shop from Main Street, from the book Main Street, and I printed it on my own paper and tried to color that page, and I did enjoy it, but I think because it was printed out, I don't think I barely ever print out PDFs, so I've not found a paper I like. I love coloring in books themselves, so I haven't really bothered to find the best paper possible for coloring on and stuff. So I didn't enjoy it as much on that paper, and I never thought to try and buy the Creative Havens then. When I saw this particular book and I saw a flip through of this book, I really liked it, and I said, okay, I've never tried it. I tried that Christine Karen Amazon paper book finally, and I enjoyed it. So I said, okay, let me just try it. I really like the artwork, and I'm sure I'll be able to at least color in it. Whether I enjoy the paper or not, we'll figure that out later. So I got this book, and and this is the first page I'm coloring in it, and really enjoying every minute of it. Her illustrations are just so lovely to color and just so relaxing, actually, surprisingly. Like, I never realized. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this page. All right, so we've darkened up those pleats. So you can probably already see the effect of the pleats coming on. This might be quite a simple how I color video, but it was requested, so I don't mind. I love coloring pleats or clothing, so I'm happy to do it. All right, so that was my darker shade. I'm going to go back with my other shade because I just want to extend that color a little bit. So that was the dark cadmium yellow. Just going to do that very lightly. I'm extending this line here just to sort of not have a sudden abrupt end to my pleat, but more, you know, graded or more gradual end to the pleat. I find whenever I'm doing these videos where I'm chatting as I'm doing them, I tend to try and color really fast, which is not my style of coloring, and then I don't blend very well. But there we go. This is Naples yellow, so now I'm working my way to my lighter shades of yellow. So I've put out, I know where my highlight is going to be. I'm going to have to try and maintain that area so that I don't put too much color, because as I always say, the contrast between your darks and lights really helps with something popping. And so I don't want to cover up my highlight areas completely. So I'm going to go very gently into the highlight areas. Yeah. The next shade, cadmium yellow. And then this is cadmium yellow lemon. So it's a bit of a bright or neon kind of color, but I think it'll give a nice highlight to the dress, to all the other yellows. Okay, yeah, that's a nice highlight. And then I go in with my white just to emphasize my highlight areas. Brighten them up a little bit. I'm putting a bit of pressure for this because I'm basically also blending it sort of at the same time. Not blending, burnishing. Basically just getting rid of the tooth of the paper. I'm not going to put any more color in the highlight areas, so it's okay to go with more pressure. Okay. Just going to go back in with my burnt ochre because I didn't blend that very well. I was doing it quite fast. Because I'm not going for very dark, because I'm working with yellow, my shadow area is not going to be very dark. So for example, if I went with the blue, I'd have a really dark blue or even gray or even black for the shadow areas. But because I'm working with yellow, I should have chosen an easier color to work with. I always struggle with yellow, but because I'm working with yellow, my shadow is not going to be a very dark color. So I thought that this burnt ochre works really well for the shadow. And then the other thing that we need to color. So there you go. You can actually see the pleats in that dress, I hope. Yeah, so now the other thing we have to keep in mind, whenever you can see the inside of a dress, that's going to be so the underside of your dress or any other clothing, like for example inside that t-shirt there, the back of this dress where I was saying the inside of the waistline of those pair of jeans, they're going to be darker. So for example here you can see the inside part of your dress, so you're going to use your darkest shade to sort of darken that up, and that helps with giving that effect of the falls or the pleats, you see. So I'm just using, they're such small areas in this particular case, so I'm just, all I'm using is the darkest shade. But what you could do is work, so say for example I've used my darkest shade there and then just work towards your lightest, depending on how big that area, how large that area is. So I use the dark cadmium yellow there. So if I do it on this particular part, the darkest shadow will be immediately behind the neckline, because that's where the darkest shadow would be created. And as you come out of that shadow area, it becomes lighter. Sorry, that was the burnt ochre. Yeah. And I will do the same thing here in the armhole, sleeve. Yeah. But I won't do the whole thing light, because obviously as it's coming out that way, some light will hit it. So you want to use a slightly lighter yellow. And I'll just use my next shade of yellow, which is the dark cadmium yellow. And there we go. And that makes it look like it's, you know, the inner side of your clothing. So hopefully that was easy to follow. I don't think there's much else for me to say about clothing. If you do have any questions or any you know, suggestions even about how to do clothing, let me know. But if you do have any questions of how I do it or how to do a certain, you know, other thing with clothing, let me know. I'll be more than happy to try and answer the question if I know how to. But yeah, I hope you found that useful, and I hope you got some ideas that you can take away for your coloring. And I guess I can finish this dress on camera, but I'll just do it to music so that you guys don't get too bored. So yeah, I'll finish the rest of the pleats and all for you guys on camera, but leave you in peace with the music. All right, thank you for watching. I hope it was interesting, and I'll see you guys next time on my next video. Until then, take care and bye-bye.